Thank you for your interest in the Southside Neighborhood Plan Visioning Workshop Recap. We appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to review this video and the materials on our webpage. Over the past several months, our planning team, comprised of city staff and consultant team members from Smith Group and Gema Studio, have conducted a series of community engagement events, stakeholder interviews, focus group sessions, steering committee meetings, online surveys, and much more to gather key insight about the South Side from community members across the area. The feedback collected during these engagements have helped guide the planning process and the ideas put forward during the visioning workshop. Critical feedback from our engagements and refined ideas from the visioning workshop will ultimately inform the final plan document. If you have not been able to join any of our previous engagements, no need to worry. This video presentation will provide a brief recap of the engagement activities we have conducted thus far. In this presentation, we will review what a neighborhood plan is, what it can and cannot do, the stages of the planning and where we are in that process, what we have learned thus far from our engagement with local residents and stakeholders, and finally, review the ideas that were presented during our most recent engagement, the Community Visioning Workshop. The ideas and concepts put forward during the Visioning Workshop are all based on things that our team heard and documented during our previous engagements. As we walk you through the ideas that were presented at the Visioning Workshop, please keep in mind that these are not final concepts. Based on the feedback received during the Visioning Workshop and any additional community and stakeholder feedback you might provide after reviewing this video, the planning team will develop final concepts, plan recommendations, and strategies to be shared later this fall and included in the final plan document. Now that you've had a brief overview, let's get planning. So what is a neighborhood plan?
A neighborhood plan is a long-term planning policy document that is created with the community to guide future development. A neighborhood plan outlines a community's shared vision for the future and helps the city and community make key decisions on things like how to address key concerns and priorities of the residents and property owners, what types of development the community may want to see in the neighborhood and where, and lastly, a neighborhood plan can help guide the city on how they should allocate resources to implement the vision of the plan.
Here are some specifics on what a neighborhood plan can do. A neighborhood plan can document existing conditions in the community. It can identify goals for the neighborhood's growth. It can contain specific strategies to reach those goals that may make the area more attractive for investment. This does have the potential to impact property values. And finally, it can recommend changes in zoning. It cannot, however, bring specific businesses to an area. It cannot raise or lower your taxes. And although it can make recommendations for zoning changes, it cannot, in fact, change property zoning. Changing the zoning of a property is done through a different process. As professional planners, we realize that an inclusive and transparent planning process conducted with the community often leads to the best outcomes. So we have developed an approach to this plan that constantly engages the community at every phase of the planning process. Our approach begins with laying a foundation of trust with the community. We then move into building a consensus around the vision for the future of the South Side by developing a series of goals and priorities for the plan. Our next phase explores various ideas and solutions for achieving the goals we laid out. We finish by assessing all of the feedback received and evaluating the concepts we have developed to settle on a preferred plan approach that will be our guide for the future of the South Side. At this point in the process, the planning team will no longer be taking community feedback and will be moving into plan development. Lastly, the planning team drafts a plan that is then adopted by the city in order to begin implementation. As you can see from our slide, we are currently wrapping up the visioning and exploration phase of the planning process. Your feedback is still greatly appreciated at this time. In order to accomplish all of this, we have worked very hard to build trust with the community and establish several touch points for community members and stakeholders to provide critical feedback on the plan. To date, our team has conducted community walks with city officials and residents to get an up-close and personal view of the challenges and opportunities facing the South Side. We've developed a steering committee of trusted local leaders, residents, and community advocates to help guide the planning process. We've canvassed over 300 households to inform residents of the plan and upcoming engagement events. We've hosted an initial community kickoff dinner where we conducted several group exercises to gather community insight. We've produced 3 online surveys about the plan and received around 50+ responses. We've interviewed approximately 8 local stakeholder groups, property owner groups, and city departments. We've hosted 4 online community focus groups to discuss housing and infrastructure. We've hosted a Sandusky Youth Workshop with local teens from the community to gain their valuable feedback as future residents. We've held 4 steering committee meetings. We've collected 20+ Dear Southside letters from residents, and we've directly engaged over 120+ individuals in this planning process to date. From the previously collected information, the planning team then moved forward with developing a draft vision statement, priorities, concepts, and recommendations for key areas of focus in the South Side. These ideas were placed into a series of boards to be displayed during the visioning workshop. The visioning workshop served as an opportunity for residents to review the proposed vision statement, priorities, and concepts, and provide feedback. The feedback from this event would then be synthesized by the planning team into a refined preferred scenario concept. The remainder of the presentation covers the information outlined in the visioning workshop boards, beginning with the draft vision statement. A vision statement describes the desired future of the South Side within the next 10 to 15 years and will guide the direction of the plan. Vision statements are intended to be broad and aspirational, while also reflecting the community's current and future values. Here, you will find the Southside Draft Vision Statement. The Southside is a welcoming, safe, and family-focused neighborhood with a deep sense of community pride, where new and long-standing residents from a diversity of economic, social, and ethnic backgrounds have access to key resources like small and local businesses, well-paying jobs, affordable housing, open spaces, and social services that enhance all community members' living experience. In addition to a draft vision statement, a plan is also guided by community priorities. From our engagement and research, our team has identified 6 main priority areas that are reflective of what we heard from the community throughout our engagement process. These priorities outline shared community values and will help refine project goals. The priority areas are as follows and are not listed in any particular order: housing and neighborhoods, access and services, connectivity and infrastructure, economic prosperity, branding and beautification, parks and open space. Each priority area also has an overarching statement that identifies the values and aspirations that residents hope to achieve as outcomes for this plan. Now, we will review each priority statement, starting with housing and neighborhoods. In the South Side, residents have access to multiple housing types at different price points. A wide variety of housing options encourages home ownership, accommodates a variety of living situations, and provides residents the opportunity to age in place. Connectivity and infrastructure. In the South Side, roads, sidewalks, and bike paths are enhanced by proper water systems, wastewater services, stormwater drainage, green infrastructure, and safety systems that increase neighborhood walkability and security. The community's improved connectivity links residents comfortably and safely to key locations across the neighborhood and city. Branding and beautification. In the South Side, community pride is evident through cohesive branding that celebrate the neighborhood's history and established multi-generational lineage. Tree-lined streets, well-kept properties, and public art make Southside a unique and vibrant part of Sandusky's city fabric. Access and services. In the Southside, people have access to essential businesses, healthcare facilities, social services, and nonprofit and faith-based institutions that provide fundamental services and supplies to the neighborhood. Community health is improved through connectedness, access to healthy food options, and community amenities. Economic prosperity. In the South Side, development opportunities and local business support provide community members from a variety of income levels access to jobs, educational resources, business development training, and citywide programs. Career building, occupational training, and home ownership are prioritized to offer residents the resources they need to achieve economic security. Parks and open space. In the South Side, accessible parks and open spaces serve as community hubs that provide increased opportunity for recreation and physical activity. These neighborhood destinations are walkable and offer a variety of activities for visitors of all ages.
Now you might be asking, how do we bring this vision to life and ensure that these priorities are met? Our planning team used the previously mentioned vision and priorities to develop a series of concept ideas for key areas that will be addressed in the plan.
Housing and neighborhoods cover current and projected housing needs, opportunities to enhance housing, and research on the types of housing options that best meets the need in the South Side. The graphic pictured here shows the different housing options that are available to consider as part of this plan. Southside already has a mix of single-family detached and multifamily housing. Other options to consider include townhomes, tiny homes, cottages, modular, and accessory dwelling unit housing. These options are often more affordable than new single-family development and better meet the long-term needs of residents wishing to age in place. New home development costs are soaring, which affects the price of rents and home ownership. Southside income is above city level at around $43,000, but below median income for the county. Although rents are affordable at an average of $615 a month, there are still households who are paying more than 30% of their income on housing costs, and that's the 260 households that you see pictured. To address the affordable housing issue in Southside, it's important to discuss how we can meet the need for new housing while also preserving affordability for existing Southsiders. This will require a set of policy and programmatic solutions for the 218 renter households and 175 owner households that will need assistance. This assistance may come in the form of home ownership education and down payment assistance, senior housing, minor repair programs, expanding rehab programs for smaller unit developments, and tenant rights education for renters and landlords. Affordable housing is not public housing. An affordable home is something everyone strives for. Affordable housing means you can pay your rent or mortgage without being cost burdened. Anyone who pays more than 30% of their income on housing costs is cost burdened. So for example, if you make $45,000 and are paying more than $1,188 in rent, you are cost burdened. As previously mentioned, the median income in Southside is around $43,000, so the maximum affordable rent and mortgage are shown here. We have discussed the strength and diversity within Southside, and this stems from the fact that the neighborhood does accommodate people of all lifestyles, 1 and 2 income households, households with 1 to 3 people, including children and older adults. To meet the needs of these groups, a range of housing options at different price points and programs to improve home ownership and stabilize rental rates should be considered. Continuing the idea of providing a variety of housing types, we showed Southsiders a few different options to consider at the visioning workshop. This included single-family attached housing like townhomes, row homes, and condominiums, mixed-use developments which have retail or office on the ground level and affordable housing above, small footprint homes like cottage home, tiny homes, or accessory dwelling units which provide variety of options for aging in place and creating community, and adaptive reuse, which are finding new uses for neglected or vacant structures. This plan also needs to consider the vacant lots and vacant homes in Southside. This includes the 228 already constructed homes that are currently vacant and the land that is currently zoned residential but has no structure on it, which are shown on the map at the top of your screen. Some options that we provided include pocket parks, selling to current homeowners as an extension of their existing lot, and developing infill housing.
Connectivity and infrastructure highlights the opportunities to strengthen connectivity, areas where infrastructure can be improved, and strategies for addressing local concerns with safety, accessibility, and wayfinding. There are many types of infrastructure used to support the everyday needs of Southside residents, from sidewalks and streetlights to trees and sewer lines. All of these types of infrastructure include a cost, and our goal from the onset of our conversations with community members was to determine what we should prioritize through the Southside Neighborhood Plan. What we heard the most through both community conversations and the perception survey responses was a clear need for right-of-way improvements, bike infrastructure, and street beautification. Right-of-way improvements could include filling sidewalk gaps, repairing existing sidewalks, enhancing landscaping buffers to create more safe spaces for pedestrians, using native species and rainwater collectors as planters to help with flooding and stormwater issues, and road improvements. Bike infrastructure was another common topic. Residents were very clear that while they want students and children to have multiple options for transportation, one should not come at the expense of another. To ensure that bike lanes provide enough room for cars and pedestrians, we recommend a mixed toolbox of bike infrastructure. Dedicated bike lanes can be used when there is enough room in the right-of-way, such as on Pierce Street. Streets that are slightly slimmer could connect to a bike loop by only having bike lanes on one side of the road, which is what we show as an example on Camp Street. Streets which are much tighter and aren't expected to have as much bike traffic, such as Mills, could use advisory bike lanes, which allow cars to use the bike lane when a bicyclist isn't using it. As you can see on this diagram, we have tried to concentrate infrastructure investments along key corridors most mentioned throughout this process. Pierce and Buchanan could become a multimodal loop with bike infrastructure and a walking path around the golf course. Roads like Mills, Camp, and Hayes, which have students crossing often for school, could focus more on traffic calming measures, such as those bike lanes we mentioned, street trees, and clear signage. Other roads need to focus more on sidewalk enhancements, with the Forest Drive Loop and routes to schools such as Johnson being priorities. Branding and beautification were mentioned so much when talking about roads, housing, and other topics that we quickly realized branding and beautification is an important community priority. We've split branding and beautification into these 6 main categories. Signage, wayfinding, and community art can reflect the Southside pride that we talk about so much and the talent of Southsiders. There's a lot of history to the Southside which could be shown through pavers, art, or monuments. From the stories of kids running down to cliffs for a treat to the legacy of Churchwell Park, There are opportunities to share and memorialize these stories for the next generation. Street enhancements such as landscaping and maintained street trees were mentioned often when discussing connectivity, but beautification was most mentioned when discussing housing. Code enforcement is one tool to ensure properties are kept to a certain standard by attaching a fee to houses that don't meet the code, so to speak. Discussions with homeowners and landlords showed a clear need for funding opportunities outside of community development beautification grants, which go quickly, to ensure residents have financial opportunities to bring their properties back up to code. Aside from housing, several key intersections and streets were mentioned the most throughout our engagement process. Residents mentioned the need to build on the recent construction of the Camp and Hayes underpasses. These could both be gateways to the neighborhood with the proper signage, art, and investment. Students mentioned the need for safety enhancements in these areas as well, especially with the need for lighting and clear sight lines at the Hayes underpass. The need for more street trees was also mentioned along Mills, Pierce, Buchanan, Florist, Johnson, and Orlando Pace. Beautification, street enhancements, and programming were the top conversation pieces for three primary sites. The vacant American Crayon site by the Hayes Underpass was one. Mills School and MacArthur Park, also known as Churchwell Park, were other key areas our team focused on.
Let's look at the key focus areas of improvement for this neighborhood. The first site is Mills School. Mills School once served Southside as an elementary school and is currently the temporary hub for the city's recreation department. Once the rec department finds a new permanent home, Mills School will have an opportunity to serve Southside in a different way. Some feedback that we heard reflected a need for more housing. Some feedback we heard reflected a need for community serving programs. These scenarios propose three different uses that respond and combine some of these requests. Scenario 1 considers a mix of affordable and at-market apartment options with private amenities for residents. Scenario 2 focuses on senior living and shared community spaces. Scenario 3 shows all public facilities for Southside residents to use for learning or small business development. The second site is Churchwell Park in the MacArthur Park area of Southside. Enclosed by housing, the design team heard that the park felt inaccessible and private. With limited activities, it is unclear how residents could maximize the use of this space. Furthermore, with the vacancy around the park, other residents were concerned about filling in those gaps with quality housing options. This scenario re-envisions Churchwell Park as a more activated area for families and visitors of all ages. New pavilions for gathering and cookouts, an open field for team play, a shaded plaza for special events, hilltop play with a splash pad that will also serve as great sledding hills in the wintertime, bathrooms, parking, and a series of walking trail loops. The perimeter of the park will host new housing options for existing residents to move into, for rent or for sale.
Thank you again for taking the time to listen to our presentation. We would also like to thank all of those who attended the visioning workshop and any of our previous engagements. Your feedback is critical to ensuring that the plan is a true reflection of the community. Please continue to follow the project progress by visiting the project website and city social media pages. We look forward to our next engagement with you. Thank you.